everybody. Welcome to this month's episode of the Female Film Critics panel. It's so much fun to do this panel. I love talking with fellow female film critics and content creators. It's so much fun. We have a great panel with us today. First, we have with us Margaret Raspberry, sometimes goes by Molly. Molly, thank you so much for coming with us.
Thanks for having me.
We also have with us Manda with us. Thank you so much for coming on and talking with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So we'd like to have you both give a chance to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your content, what you're doing in the space of film. And why don't you start, Molly?
Okay. Hi. I mostly do content for the Film Stage website, and I've done transcribing and trailer write-ups, and I've done a few small snippet reviews. Like they do their end of the year best films, that sort of thing, so I get to actually work on those lists, and it's really a lot of fun. And I also get to work on their list to help them promote films that are unknown or not or underrated. So I get to put movies in, like, I thought this was underrated, and Jordan Robb, the editor-in-chief, actually looks at those and gets to say, like, yeah, this was actually a good one, let's actually promote that. So I'm glad I get to help with that. And I mostly do my reviews on Letterboxd for right now, because I mostly am just making them very small because I'm in school again. So it's kind of hard to keep up with everything like that, but yeah.
Oh, you do a lot though. And you're a big TCM fan, correct?
Yes, I am.
Like watching the classics.
Yes, I actually am basically recording all of tomorrow's episodes. Setsuko Hara gets her day, Summer Under the Stars, and she's one of my favorite actresses of all time. So if you're watching, even though this is going to be in September, just go watch it, you guys, if you haven't had a chance, because it's fantastic movies, and some of them are not on the Criterion channel. I checked.
That's great. All right, Manda, what about you? What do you write and do podcasts and all kinds of fun stuff, right?
I'm an entertainment journalist and film critic. I have my own website, which is candidexcinema.com, and I also started out on Letterboxd. I started out on Letterboxd, and then it's fun to see how Letterboxd reviews do, because sometimes you can write like a full-length review and people are loving it. And then you get like one-liners and they all love that too. So it's funny to see that go off. But yeah, I started on Letterboxd, and I made my own website, and now I'm also editor of Geek Bomb, which is an American publication. So I've been writing for them as well. But I've been doing reviews for anything and everything. And it's a lot of fun. I've been getting, some interviews and just broadening, my palette, I guess, and dabbling in everything. And I have a couple of podcasts with Music City Drive-In and the Cinemania World Team. So it's been a lot of fun just creating content and being able to be on a social platform like Twitter and YouTube, and just being able to collaborate with so many amazing people. I think that's the bonus of, being in this industry, in this field, and learning from everyone, most importantly. So it's been fun.
Yeah, I think there is obviously a downside to social media, to Twitter, film Twitter, and everything like that. But I'd still say as a whole, it's been a net positive in my life. I mean, everybody that I've basically interviewed in this series has been somebody I met on, almost all of them, people I met on Twitter. And so it has gotten me a lot of friends. Yeah,
it's a great space, but I totally understand the dark side of the platform. So we've all been through it, but
the hashtag discourse. I wonder if next week we're going to have is there too much sex and meat in movies right now, or should we have more? That's always one that comes in at least once a month. And I'm just like, as long as it's done well, please add it. I'm kind of tired, but I'm kind of tired of this because most directors can't do it well. So just don't. Just don't.
Yeah. Well, and then just the talking about it can get a little misogynistic.
Oh, definitely.
Quite quickly.
Definitely. Oh, definitely. It always will go in that. There was that Twitter guy who was trolling everyone, except he was all right, everything like that. And I figured that out, and I immediately blocked him. And then he tried getting on Rosalie
Yes.
Her, and I had to message her and just say, he's a troll. He's not going to stop. So the best thing is to ignore them. Just don't fan the flames. And that's something I've had to learn personally, because I used to do that a lot in college, unfortunately, on Facebook. Another reason I kind of avoid Facebook.
Yeah.
Besides the fact it's a worse than Twitter. Twitter is absolute garbage, but I still keep it just to know, just be like, oh, someone's got a cute baby. But otherwise, I'm just like, no, I'm not getting into this. I'm not getting into that. But yes,
Facebook is good for like my book club or something, like, you know, like coordinating events and stuff like that. It's pretty good for that. But it's the worst when anything controversial, it's the worst.
Oh, definitely. And they don't moderate that stuff. At least with Twitter, you can actually send it to report it, say, no, this is abusive behavior. And that's what happened to the guy. And he's had his his Twitter account banned, but now he's trying to get back on. But we all know the signs of who he is. So we all know, just like, no.
When I had the death threat on Facebook, I reported it, and they were like, well, we don't see any harm or harm to yourself or whatever, something like that. And I'm like, are you kidding me? He literally threatened to take an A47 into the next screening.
Exactly.
Like, what more do you want? Like, what else could he do?
The worst thing I got on Twitter was when I said Aquaman was just okay compared to Wonder Woman was so much better, was someone calling me the C word. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that here, but just saying, like, you're a real C word. It made $1 billion, so you're a dumb. And I was like, okay. In fact, I even just like, oh, it's the first time I've been called that word on Twitter. I made it. Just like, take the good side of that.
One of the reasons I wanted to start this series was, it's funny you mentioned that, because Mara Reinstein, who's incredible, and she's been on this series, and she wrote a whole article on Huffington Post called "I Got Death Threats for Writing a Bad Review of Aquaman." And her experience, it's a great piece, and it's just something I connected with it so much because I'd had a similar experience. And she says that she says the B word and C word are tossed around with regularity. Years ago, one guy commented that I must have been on my period when I saw a certain action film. After I opined on a radio show, a group of men found my photo and discussed my level of hotness on a forum. They knocked my hair, my skin, my nose. Though my male counterparts get some blowback as well, I doubt anyone is ripping on them for their looks. And that is, I think we can all relate to that.
Oh, definitely.
So bad.
Yeah. It's one nice thing about podcasting. It's just your voice.
Exactly. That is the good thing.
Although I did have somebody in the reviews the other day say that I had a G-awful accent, and I was like, I didn't even know I had an accent.
What?
I can't really hear an accent.
I can't hear anything either.
No.
It was pretty funny. I was like, wow.
Maybe it's just to them, like how some British people are very Southern sounding people. They hear someone up farther north and they're just like, where's your accent from? It's just, I mean,
everyone technically has an accent, but mine is just sort of, I thought, sort of blasé American. Like, nothing too great.
Mine mostly is too, except when I've been drinking a little, then I'll get a little Southern there. Our nation, biscuits and gravy.
So, Manda, I wanted to ask you, you are with a bunch of different, you have a bunch of different podcasts and different things that you've worked with. And I was just curious how you got started kind of on that path with Cinemania and Geekly Goods and those podcasts.
It's really funny. Actually, the story, Leo Rydell at rejected_Leo, who kind of got his account suspended from before, but for Geekly Goods, you can find him on YouTube. He scouted me out because he started reading my reviews on my website, and then he really pushed me towards like collaborating, and I did a few podcasts with him, and then he introduced me to like all these other people on film Twitter, and then we started collaborating, and then it was more like I got to know others, and with Cinemania World, Dwayne Miller on on Twitter as well. Like he reached out. So it was more of like just having an opinion on Twitter in that space and then wanting to collaborate with different people. And it just snowballed. Like I didn't expect it at all. And it was just like, I had hot takes, very unpopular opinions. And, you know, like that's why they wanted to, you know, reach out and work with me. And then it just kind of stuck. So I have to thank Leo like 100% for that, to bring me into this space and made me feel confident enough to even start my own YouTube channel, because I was always like terrified of YouTube as a platform. There's so many things that can happen with YouTube, and you know, I was just afraid of that, but he really helped me out, and yeah, it just snowballed.
Great. So Molly, I wanted to ask you about your graduate degree in film studies. And I've only known people that were getting their undergrad. I've never talked to anybody who got a graduate degree in film studies. And I know that sometimes my brother took a film studies class, and instead of getting introduced to, you know, the classics that you think they would, there were all these really niche, really independent, like films that the teacher particularly liked, which I guess could have its value.
Yeah.
But what has your experience been like? Do you feel like you've gotten a good basic education as far as film goes? I don't know. What has that been like for you?
I think it's been very fascinating. I do not regret doing it, especially since I went to a program that actually paid me to go. So that's the thing that a lot of people find with grad school daunting, I think, is that they believe, oh, I have to go to the best film school, or I have to do this. I have to go to NYU. I have to go to Rochester. And a part of it is just not really. I don't think everybody has to. I mean, Ohio University, the place I went, also has that same program too for the MFAs who are production based, and the cinematographer for Todd Haynes actually went into that program. So, but I went into the film studies in particular with that. It was a 2-year program, and each semester, because I worked it, I would get like, it was like being paid part-time, but then my fee was waived to about like $600 per semester, which is like, holy. Yeah, that basically pays for itself in there. People find that very daunting, or they think, oh, no one's going to take me seriously unless I go to this big fancy school. And it's just, I don't really agree with that. I mean, a degree is a degree. And if you want to save that money, you can do it. And you're going to get a whole new experience with that. But yeah, there are some of that with teachers doing niche stuff. I had one teacher who we did for a class called Historical Materialism, which is based from a Karl Marx, Frederick Engels, that sort of thing. He was very socialist, anarchist, actually, which I'm pretty sure some people are probably going to hear that and just be like, oh my goodness, he's communist. It's like, no, he just likes Marx a lot and he studies it a lot. But we ended up watching films like Medea by Pasolini with Maria Callas, and she did not sing, which was kind of amazing. And it's such a good movie, because mostly when you talk about Pasolini, people just think of Salò or 120 Days of Sodom, because that's the most infamous film, but he didn't really do a lot of that stuff. But then on the other hand, I had another teacher who taught us about with just consumerism and capitalism, but using Michael Bay's The Island as his example. So we watched a Michael Bay film in film school, and The Matrix. So it's not like it's all that pretentiousness with that. In fact, that was actually one thing some people were like, wait, you watched a Michael Bay film? It's like, yeah. And it actually makes sense. And it's kind of genius in a really bad way, you know? So it's a way to also look at that. Also, we watched Inland Empire, the Donnie Darko's director's film. So it's not like it's whole. I feel like a lot of people are more intimidated by it than what it really is, because I thought I had a lot of stupid ideas. I did a grad school paper on the Wonder Woman, the new one. So and Ghostbusters, the remake, to talk about female-led action films of the new 2010s. So, and people are just like, oh, you didn't talk about like like these like Krzysztof Kieslowski or Bergman or those sorts of
Fellini or
people.
something.
Exactly. Like, no, our teachers didn't want that. They're just like, everybody's written about that. Write about something new, a whole new idea you have.
Yeah.
I had a classmate, one of my best friends, she wrote an entire paper on the theory of societies of control using Codename Kids Next Door and Fairly Odd Parents as her example. And she used Deleuze and Foucault to write a whole 100-page thesis on it. So you can still find, and that's why I don't really consider the highbrow, lowbrow art thing really important. And I feel that gets tossed around in Twitter a lot, or the gatekeeping aspects of it. Just like, you can't judge these films as good unless you've seen this film and this film and this film. I had a bunch of classmates who never even went to film school, and they did film studies because they wanted to do it and they wanted to gain this experience, or they wanted to teach this. So
that's how I feel too. The whole cinema argument. I think
exactly.
That if it inspires you, if it entertains you, it's cinema as far as
exactly. Exactly. Like what you did, the Paw Patrol review, which I thought was excellent. And I'm just like, and I've seen a lot of Equestria Girl. I've seen a lot of the My Little Pony Equestria Girls movies. So, and I think they're fantastic. So
Manda, on your website, you have a lot of festival coverage, plus then you have the blockbuster coverage. And I was just wondering, how do you decide what you're going to cover for your site?
Oh man, I try to do, especially when it's festival season, I love going like deep into the Oscars, and that's always something that I've done since I was a kid. My dad kind of showed me the ropes, and I've been like casting a ballot since I was like 8 years old, not even knowing what the movies were about since then. So he really got me into that. So that's always where I want my focus. But obviously the blockbusters, they're much more personal to me. I think growing up with like Marvel films or DC films, it's just a different side. And I'm not saying you can't have fun with Oscar films, that's not what I'm saying, but it's just a different vibe entirely. And I just love talking about movies. So I know that for even, I guess, critiquing like an Oscar film is going to be very different than critiquing like a Marvel or DC film like that, or a franchise film. So I feel like even when writing it, you do have to like switch up your voice in certain ways, but it's still fun to be able to reach out like to different audiences and just have that conversation about movies that we all love.
Yeah, I think it's good to have a mix. I mean, I cover everything from the Hallmark movies to the big, animated films, Disney releases, things like that. And I don't know, it's variety's the spice of life, as they say.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's just fun. Like, why wouldn't you?
I'd say I wouldn't want to just, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I would say I wouldn't want to just review art house films or foreign language films all the time. I want spice too. Just like animated features. Give me some good shows, that sort of thing like that.
For sure.
Yeah. So I was going to ask both of you, what do you think is maybe a film from 2021 that maybe isn't getting enough love? You can give a shout out to it, or something that you really enjoyed. You both have been to some of the festivals, right?
Yeah, I did do Sundance. I'm just like,
Sundance was so good. I'll start while you guys are thinking.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to London.
So I really enjoyed Together. I don't know if you got a chance to see this one.
It was so fun. Yeah,
I really thought it was good. Nicole Beckwith, writer director. Because I cover Hallmark movies, and I cover a lot of romantic movies, obviously. And this was so refreshing to me to have a platonic friendship celebrated in film. You never see it. And I didn't even know that Patty Harrison was trans when I saw it, reviewed the film. It didn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter, like, as long as she's great for the role. But like, I thought that was really cool that I didn't know. You know what I mean? Like, it was just, she was the right person for the role. And it was, I thought that was really kind of cool that representation is important, but I think it's also like important that like anybody can be qualified and cast in a role that they're qualified for. And it didn't like have to be this big like message point of the film, if that makes sense. I thought that was really cool. Once I found out, I was like, wow, she's very impressive. Anyway, I thought they had great chemistry, and it was just so refreshing to me to see a movie about a platonic friendship. Did you get to see that one, Manda?
Yeah, I did. I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
And I like you said, like the representation does matter, but the emphasis doesn't always have to be on like a coming out story or what they have to go through. So yeah, I definitely appreciated the same things that you did for that film.
Yeah. What about you, Molly? What's something you've enjoyed this year?
I think I just found one on Letterboxd that I really enjoyed, and I do know that Film Stage really liked it too, but I think it's kind of been lost in the wayfare. All Light Everywhere, the documentary. I'm not sure if you guys saw it at Sundance. The documentary about well, it starts out about police cams and how everything's looking at, but it's also discussed about ways of seeing. And I almost feel this is going to be my film studies talking. I almost feel it's like the unofficial sequel to Giga Vertov's Man with the Movie Camera. So that idea of what the camera could do, except how our lives are envisioned through the camera eye itself. So it was very fascinating to look at. I don't think it's going to be everybody's cup of tea, unfortunately, but I do know it will probably be a fixture of a lot of film studies classes. And I really enjoyed it with that, at least on the documentary front. So I will give a shout out to All Light Everywhere.
I need to see that. I missed it, but did you see Users at Sundance?
I did not, unfortunately. I could only do a couple days at Source. I can only do like 2 days of things like that, because I also had class at the time, and I was like,
yeah.
Man.
It won all these awards and stuff, but I thought it was I did not like it at all. And it's frustrating when something that sounds like what you saw was actually like a better version of this kind of idea.
Yeah. I think it won one of the best documentary features at Sundance, at least. So at least it got some award recognition. Good. And I think it has been bought for distribution. Thank goodness. That's the one thing I always hope for. Yeah. Because I ended up watching 2 years ago, 2019, I watched a really good Sundance film with Holiday Granger, Animals. And Alia Shawkat was in it too, and nobody bought it. And I was just like, nobody else is going to see it, and it's so good. So that's one of my biggest fears with film festivals.
It was a good season for Sundance for documentaries, because Flea was really good. That's an animated documentary. And then also I loved Misha and the Wolves. That movie blew my mind, and I won't say anything else about it because it's best if that is one movie. It's best if you go in completely unspoiled. I had my mouth was on the floor. I couldn't believe it. But what about you, Manda? What did you think of something from this year?
I love what Ben Wheatley does, so I kind of lean towards like In the Earth. And the film isn't his strongest, it's not his best by no means, but when I watched it at Sundance, I think it was like the third night premiere at 9 p.m. One of the trippiest experiences of my life, that movie. And he put me in a trance with being in that forest, and the two leads like just getting completely lost in there with one person coming after them. Like it was just really, really well done. The sound design was really cool, and it took place during the pandemic, and it's the first pandemic film of that year that they kind of put out. But I thought it was really interesting, and I was in a trance. I kind of got lost in it for a little bit. But
I heard that one was good. I didn't see it, but I heard it was good.
Yeah,
there's been some really good stuff at the festivals this year. It's been really good. I loved speaking of pandemic films, I loved in from South by Southwest a movie called Recovery that I thought was really funny, and it'll be interesting to watch it now, or maybe even a year from now, because it's all about these two girls who drive from New Mexico to Oregon to rescue their grandma who's in this COVID nursing home thing, and it manages to be really funny. But it'll be interesting once we're sort of away from that experience if it's as funny as it was. But I laughed a lot. I thought it was very good.
That's why I'm always reticent to call something like an instant classic or masterpiece.
Agreed.
That sort of thing. It's like you gotta wait. You gotta wait for time. Yeah.
I agree. So I always ask in this series, I ask for your opinion of what you feel is important about having female voices in criticism versus just a review is a review. Does it not matter who's written in the review? What do you think, Molly, about that?
Okay. Well, for starters, bias is a huge part of that. And I'm thinking of the example. I'm not sure if you guys have seen the film Book Club, with Jane Fonda. I thought it was super cute and very sweet, but I noticed there was this, when I started reading reviews, it was gotten the rotten score, but most of the bad reviews were from men and most of the good ones were from women because they actually really liked seeing these older actresses, Candice Bergen, all these people getting to be sexual, getting to date. And yes, they read 50 Shades of Grey and I did not care about that, but it's like they're getting into their inner desires, that sort of thing. When male critics are just like, I don't really get that or really feel that and that sort of thing. And it's just, I think we need more female voices to actually speak up for films that are not generally for men in that regard, in that sense, because some things are just not for men and some things are not just, I mean, I think even Roger Ebert pointed it out for his review of Twilight that said, I am not the general audience for this, but I'm at least going to give it 2.5 stars. Okay. Even though I hate it because the people who this movie is made for is going to love it. And I don't think a lot of male critics, especially, I shouldn't generalize like that, but I don't think they really get to that or they really think about that. They're thinking about their perceptions and not thinking like, oh, will this audience like it? So I think that gets lost a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting you say about Book Club because I give that a positive review as well. Yeah. And I remember one of my friends, they were reviewing it and they were talking about the special effects on the plane flight scene. And I'm just like, what? That doesn't matter at all. Like, who cares about that? Who
cares? Exactly.
It doesn't have anything to do with this movie. Like, who cares?
Exactly. Like, let older women drink wine and have sex, okay?
Yes.
It's about Andy Garcia being super dreamy.
I know he was. I was just like, Diane Keaton, get him. I was into it. I was into it.
I liked it too. Yeah. Manda, what do you think about this question?
Oh, I completely agree with what Molly said. It's the fact that we need to have more female voices, but we also see things through a different lens. So I think that's what's really important on and off screen, like in the writer's room, all of that, like it needs to be kind of like a domino effect, and then we all help each other out in that way to like lift these voices and have them there. Because for like an example, I absolutely adore Mamma Mia.
Yeah,
like I love it. It's fun. I enjoy Meryl Streep, adult, that whole cast. Come on, like it's just fun. Like I don't need to sit there and have other people try because it's a musical and it's like it's not fun. It's like okay, but you have to like cast aside the fact that we're not looking for masterpieces. We're not looking for that. It's something that's going to warm our hearts and just have fun with it. And I think that even in this climate right now, it's hard to find films that are like that. You know, they're just generally like wholesome. And I think that's why, even though it's a TV show, like Ted Lasso is a massive hit because it's just such a sweet show. And it's so much fun to watch and you don't have to like overthink anything or it's a beautiful show, but like stuff like that is very hard to find. So when we have something like a Mamma Mia or, you know, the Book Club or something like even Palms it was Diane Keaton in that as well, I think. So some gems like that, we should boost it and promote it because, you know, there is an audience for it, as Molly said. So, I think it's really important just for us too, as women to just even have those conversations amongst ourselves because we're allowed to, you know?
Well, and I think especially me being somebody who covers Hallmark content, I think it's really important that there are female voices that are providing critical analysis for content that is for the most part made for women. Like if we're not out there saying this one isn't good, this one is good, kind of a thing, then it's just all gonna it's gonna be a total crapshoot.
It's
Like
true.
we need
It's
some feedback that they know, because let's be real, most of the people making these decisions are men, and
Yes.
so
Yes.
we need to be there saying, nope, that one wasn't good, that was not a good romance, that was not a good female superhero movie, or whatever it might be. If they're making something for us, we need to have people that are on the scene analyzing it and talking about it and providing feedback. I think
and not just women, but also we need people of color for that, people of different sexual orientations, different different genders. We need all that as well. So then, because this was also an issue in film school, because there were a lot of films and sort of things that people would actually direct, but then, and especially white people, it's mostly white people we saw this with, they would direct something and they try to do like a racial story or that sort of thing, but they didn't discuss it with any of the Black classmates or any of the Hispanic classmates or anyone like that, or Muslim classmates. And then it's like, and then you watch it, it's like, this is actually kind of offensive. And I know you were really, really just focused trying to make this, but you didn't ask for opinions from these classmates, even though it's not going to be at a film festival and everything. It still happens in the real world, and they need to have these questions asked. And it's not going to happen if we don't allow women into the boardrooms or women into these pre-production stages where they can actually take the assistant director aside and say, you need to tell the director this, there's some issues with this or something like that. And I know it's more complicated than that, I do know that, but that's just what has to happen. And it's not happening, unfortunately.
Yeah, and there's going to be some growing pains as they try badly to make more content for different voices. And there'll be some success and then some others not great. But that's why we need critics in there talking about it and giving them guidance of what we like and how things turn out. And I think it's really, really important. So how would you answer the question of, are you optimistic about the state of film? Because on one hand, there's more content that is being made than ever before. And there are so many outlets that people can have their films and shows and other ideas produced. So many different services and different things. But on the other hand, like we've never been more nervous for the state of cinemas and certainly bigger production films, what's going to happen. I don't know. How do you feel, Manda, about that? Would you say you're optimistic or a little bit pessimistic?
Oh man, I'm optimistic for streaming services. I think that they are, especially Netflix, they came in guns a-blazing. We're going to put out everything, even if it's bad, but we're still going to put out everything. We're going to have that representation. As of recent, like even like the Fear Street trilogy, there was great representation in there for, people of color and LGBTQ community. So that is one thing that they're doing right. Not that they're all like amazing, but they're still trying their best to put as much on their platform. So I think for streaming services, I'm very optimistic about what they have in store for us. As for the theaters, after working in a theater for like 7 years, I've noticed the shift within, those 7 years where more people are going to come in, not know what the hell is playing. This is literally the general audience. And the first thing they're going to do is go for a franchise film, because you're spending $20 to go watch something, and it better be fun and it better be good. So they're not going to take that gamble on independent films or dramas for like Oscar season, for example. So we have to look at more of like the general audience in that scope versus people who actually love going to the cinema and love going to watch these films. So I think I'm more optimistic for streaming. I'm really sad about what's happening in the theaters and how franchises have tied into what the box office entails and what they need moving forward.
So you would still have people that would just come in and be like, I'm going to see something tonight.
Yeah, they would ask me. I would get like at least 10 people.
Really?
Yeah, I swear to you. And then they'd ask me, and I'm like, I'm like, what do you normally go for? And then that's how I would kind of gauge it and not give them an independent film. So it's that kind of situation. Or if I know that the independent film was good, I kind of push them towards that. So, you know, I swayed people. That's rightfully so at box office.
I love that because it's so easy to find out what's playing. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't just look before you went. Like, I love the fact that people are doing that. I haven't done that for a long time. I used to do that at the Art House Theater, which still hasn't reopened. Hopefully it will soon here in Salt Lake. But I used to go just for like a Saturday and I'd be there all day. I would see whatever was worked in the times. And that's how I ended up seeing Wild Rose, which is one of my favorites of recent years. I absolutely
so good.
Loved that movie. And so yeah, it was just, it fit in right in between two other films. The other two I didn't like, but then I ended up really making so that's cool. I'm glad that people are still doing that. What about you, Molly? Would you say you are optimistic or a little bit pessimistic?
I would say I'm a little pessimistic, but I'm not going to go all the way like how my film professors are just like, film has been dead since the 80s and we killed it. And it's just been new. It's just been media and content. That's all it is. I'm like, no, I'm not going to go that far. I do still cringe when it's called content drop and it's a show or a movie that just came in and I'm just like, that's not content. I don't like that phrase, but it's just a nitpick of mine. Okay. I still actually say like I'm going to the pictures, that sort of thing like that. Like Marty Scorsese does. He's just, I'm just like, he gets so happy about it. So I start saying like, oh, the film, the cinema. But I think it's very interesting what streaming has done because streaming, I think, is going to be the new home for middle of the road films. Like that used to dominate a lot in cinema, but now it has been filled with so much franchise because we're living in a very postmodern society that prefers familiarity, like Amanda's talked about, and especially when we're going to put our money towards it. And we don't really have a star system much anymore like we used to. There's no movie that's like, oh, I have to go see it because Betty Davis is in it, or I have to go see it, Clark Gable's in it, Sidney Poitier's in it, because you don't really have that much anymore, more unfortunately. And that was a big way you could actually do that. But I think
the closest I can think of is The Rock, and he's had his Baywatch and things like that.
I know. I did not care for Baywatch, but yeah, it was bad.
Like it just didn't. Like even his name can't save a bad movie.
Exactly. It just can't. It really can't. And I am interested to see how it goes. I'm wondering if there's going to be like combinations of VR, virtual reality, that sort of thing that people are going to try with movies. I'm wondering if that's going to be a thing because progressive artists like Laurie Anderson have already tried that. I saw an exhibit that she made for her own movie/music CD about it, and it was virtual reality and everything like that, just to see how we do that. And also how we have to connect we're streaming and everything and everybody's staying home so much. Other entertainment outlets like video games are now taking over as the dominant entertainment forces there, and people are now going to have to consider video games are, which they are, but I'm pretty sure there are people on film Twitter who are going to argue about that. But I think I'm a realist, but with a bit of pessimism in a sense that I think cinema is always going to be there. There's always going to be an audience for it, especially depending on where you live. I live in a capital city, so I go to Alamo Drafthouse, and there are people that get excited when the new Neon or A24, like film studios are basically like the advertising thing. There are people that will go see the film just because those companies bought it and are distributing it, not because of what they know the content is. I went to a net and over half the people in there had no idea what they were watching. But and the Green Knight was also
surprise.
I know that baby, that puppet baby was amazing, and I treasured that little baby Annette. Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that Pinocchio-esque puppet.
Yeah,
but yeah, and there are other things. Yeah, and also the Green Knight. Over half the crowd I watched it with were just like what is this? I thought this was going to be like King Arthur or something like that, or like no, not really.
I literally had. I'm not even joking. the entire audience was high school kids for the green night. And I'm like, what made you come here? And they were
A24.
I guess, but they were like the running commentary was hilarious for me. They were in shock of what was happening. And I'm just sitting there laughing like, okay, guys.
When I was working at a movie theater, I had people walk out of Hereditary and somebody just screamed out loud saying like, that was the worst effing movie I ever saw in my life. Don't watch that movie. This movie sucks. Like screaming in the lobby, like at 11 p.m. at night with a whole crowd coming in to see it, because scary movies are also really popular too, not just franchises, but scary movies, because people really want that thrill in their life. And they're just, so it's very fascinating to see that. But those movie studio, those distributors can market the movie just by their brand alone. Then they have the brand. A24 literally sells their brand on t-shirts and sweatshirts now. So
House,
so
places like that.
Exactly.
The thing I'm going to be very interested to see what happens, because now we've had even movies that have done fairly well in the in this pandemic time have still for the most part lost money because the budgets were so huge on some of these movies. And so I'm very curious kind of the next sort of cycle of green lighted projects, if we're going to see a lot of scaling back and lower budgets. And I mean, just because how long can they sustain literally losing hundreds of millions of dollars on these films? I mean, I think that if they do end up releasing James Bond in November, it is going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars. It's just impossible. Like
no time to delay, huh?
Yes. I mean, and I'm just so sick of hearing about it at this point. I don't even want.
I know. It's like that video of the SNL episode that was right before the pandemic, with Daniel Craig going, "Ladies and gentlemen, the weekend." You're just like, I'm just exhausted. Ladies and gentlemen, no time to die. I'm just like, I feel so bad for him having to keep doing that and having to promote it. I think other actors like Lea Seydoux and like Ana de Armas are just like, I have other things to do. Bye-bye. I'm fine.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. I just, how much longer can these studios keep losing so much money on? I mean, even something like Jungle Cruise that did fairly well for what it is, it's still going to lose a ton of money for Disney. And I don't know. So I'm just curious. I think the next wave of greenlight projects, it just seems like they have to be tighter budgets. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
No,
we've seen a lot of interesting films that have been made under really tight budgets. And I mean, I think this whole Suicide Squad thing, I haven't seen it yet, but I think it's pretty clear that if it had been made, that the budget $188 million was completely ridiculous for that film.
Yeah, it was.
It really was.
So that's where I'm curious. And if people are expecting huge, big movies going forward, that's where I would be pessimistic. I don't know if we're how much more Endgames and movies like that we're going to see for a while.
Films like this, they used to be like semi-annual or just like once a year, because Titanic was not the norm. That was an anomaly, and people were just like, wait, you have a film that's over $150 million? James Cameron, you are stupid. And he said, all right, if I lose the money and I fail this, and he has a gun in his desk, I don't know if he still had it, but he has it. He said, if I lose box office failure, this is going to be my answer for right here to my head. And good thing, because then good thing it was a box office success and is now made even more money again than Avatar, because it was re-released in China.
That's true.
I was going to say, China somebody loves it, so check his desk before the sequels come out.
Before the Avatar sequel, make sure it's gone now.
I'm really nervous about those.
My friend, I remember her telling me that in high school because she loved James Cameron, and I was like, what? Why would you have this? That sort of thing. But it really is like that. And the fact they give it away so freely, especially to male directors who have screwed up more or who only had one success at Sundance or something like that. That was the issue with Fan Four Stick, as I call it, was Josh Trank and all those and those sorts of things where it's just like, no, let him work up to that. Like Chloe Zhao had to work up to it and had to win an Academy Award to be trusted with a budget like that. And and Ava DuVernay had to do that, had to work up towards it and also be trusted.
Yeah, and look what happened to her with Wrinkle in Time.
I know. And I actually kind of like that film.
Oh, really?
So
I guess I'm too attached to the book.
I understand.
Yeah, no,
I see. I can see that though. I see that though. I guess that's one of my unpopular opinions. I actually kind of like Wrinkle in Time.
But Manda, you have a bunch of big name projects on your wall there, a bunch of films. And so are you do you show the nervousness about the big blockbusters going forward?
I think if it's like Disney making them, I don't think we're gonna have an issue for some reason. I think that I'm fairly confident that if it's Disney making these films, the budget won't be as much of an issue, but I completely understand like where you're coming from with other franchises. So I don't know. I think Disney's a machine at this point. So I don't think anything will stop them, including like losing at the box office. I know they're upset about it, but I think the premiere access angle, I really appreciated that they wanted to make it more accessible for people. I think that's my angle with all of this. Even, that's why streaming is just incredible now. And you have so many different streaming services and platforms for people to watch these, even older films. Doesn't necessarily have to be like Netflix originals, but like there's so many different libraries. And now that Prime even bought MGM, like that's massive too, because then you're going to have those old MGM musicals that everyone, grew up with and can pass down to others. So for me, it's more about the accessibility, and if they can kind of join it to even like the 45-day window that Shang-Chi is gonna do for Disney and Premiere Access, for Disney and Disney Plus. I think if they develop some sort of balance and not worry about the box office too much. I know that's terrible to say, not to worry about the box office, but I think if they lean towards accessibility, we can kind of restore balance to cinema and movies in general and the way people view them.
Well, let's talk about our unpopular opinions as we do every time on this show. And I've talked about most of my big unpopular opinions, but I thought this time I would just talk about just the fact that I feel like covering Hallmark movies alone is kind of, in the world of film Twitter, a little bit like unpopular. Like they're not something to get a ton of love outside of the like people who love them. And I think that if people gave them a chance and actually tried like some of the good ones, they would see that these are really cute romantic comedies. And it's something that has just been missing for so long from cinema. I mean, you get every once in a while, you get a Crazy Rich Asians or something like that. But for the most part, romantic comedies were just gone from the cinema. And so people had nowhere else to turn to but Hallmark, and they filled the void very well. They have charming actors and actresses that that they get good chemistry. They have good writers. And so I think that I really do think if people had an open mind and gave the good ones a shot, they would enjoy it. They would enjoy them. If you're open to romantic comedies at all. And Christmas movies.
For sure.
Yeah. I do want to see the Hallmark film with Fran Drescher, and she's trying to set up her son with the cute guy next door, that sort of thing. And there's no like gay angst or anything like that. It's just really cute and sweet. And I'm like, I want to see that movie. That looks so cute and everything like that.
That one's for Lifetime. It's called The Christmas Setup.
Oh yeah,
and it was so cute.
I need to watch
it. Was so good. Yeah, really, really good. And yeah, she has a straight son and a gay
Mhm.
son, and it's just the same. And she's
Yep.
like equally kind of busybody matchmaker for both of them.
Aw.
I love that.
Yes.
And I actually absolutely adore Fran Drescher. I actually got to interview her before that movie,
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
love her so much.
That's also-
Yeah.
She's great.
I
And,
hope her nanny musical is going well. She's doing
Yeah,
that
me
with
too.
Rachel Bloom
Yeah.
last time I heard,
Yeah.
and they had a snag because Adam Schlesinger died of COVID. Unfortunately, he was one of the main composers, so that was very
yeah.
upsetting. So that's why it's hit a slag. But I'm hoping they're still working on it.
She's had on her Instagram, her, working on it. And so I think so. I
Yay.
think, and I can't wait. I will be there in New York for sure
Yes.
for that.
Awesome.
I'll make a trip.
Yeah.
For sure.
I definitely make a trip for that.
I don't, what would you mind? What's an unpopular opinion that you have had to deal with?
Oh, I have so many. I get really heated during Oscar season, and I kind of gave that up after this fiasco with Hustlers that Oscar season. I personally did not like that movie whatsoever.
Oh,
I know I didn't like.
it's okay.
I didn't like the way they painted sex workers, because there was an entire controversy behind the scenes that they didn't actually use the proper story or give credit to the actual women who went through that. So it was a whole situation with Hustlers that I didn't vibe with it. There were some great moments in Hustlers. I personally do not think Jennifer Lopez should have gotten a nomination for it, and that was the massive unpopular opinion that I had during that Oscar season.
Yeah.
So I kind of just never talk about that movie because I had people just attacking me left, right, and center for that one. So yeah, Hustlers was one of the unpopular opinions. One of the movies I never talk about. I shelved it, and I tried to keep it low key during Oscar season now because I just don't need anything else blowing up at this point.
Yeah, the Oscars season discussion can be intense. I really did not like Judy. I did not think that Renee Zellweger deserved
I did not
to
really
win.
care for it either.
I was just like, what?
Yeah.
It was not good. I'm probably going to go through that again with respect.
Oh, my mom's trying to make me take her to go see that, and I'm like, I'm afraid it's going to be another Judy thing. And I'm just like, I feel like every time a musical like that, music biopic like that happens, everybody says, watch Walk Hard before you make it, because Walk Hard just parodies it.
Just because you look like somebody does not mean you deserve an Oscar.
No.
That's the makeup. Give it to the makeup people.
Exactly. And even then, there's some actors that can actually just like, even not really looking like them, they are just so good at acting that it works. Like the movie My Week with Marilyn. I'm thinking about that one with Michelle Williams. She barely looked anything like Marilyn Monroe, but the way her affect and the way she walked and the way she talked and everything, and the way her acting was just so good, I could see Marilyn right there.
Yeah.
And that worked well. And that was a movie that only had a $10 million budget, and it got Oscar nominated. So yeah.
I mean, I've had movies that have won Best Picture that I really didn't like. I did not like Birdman.
I did not like Birdman either.
We're all in agreement. Thank God.
I was like,
because that award season.
No,
Birdman.
I didn't. I have issues with the director. I think he's very egotistical, and he's very much a big fan of the auteur theory, and he thinks these are my movies, everything like that. Like if you see his Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu, if you see his filmography up to Birdman, before that he only had one screenwriter with him, but then they got into a huge argument because the screenwriter said films are a collaborative process, everything like that, and Alejandro's like, no, it's my picture, that sort of thing like that, and they got this whole argument about that, and then they broke up a whole friendship over it. And so that's why Birdman had like 5 screenwriters, and it still won Best Screenplay with 5 screenwriters. I'm just like, how?
I think because people loved the one take. And I'm like, fine, give Lubeski the best cinematography. Absolutely. Deserved.
Give Russian. Russian Ark is boring and it's all one take too. But I still find it more interesting than Birdman. But yes.
he was, I mean, I just think that movie was the least worthy of all of the nominations that
Yeah.
year. You had something like Whiplash, you had
I know.
Grand Budapest Hotel,
Yes,
you
I
had
wanted that
Boyhood.
one.
I mean,
Yeah.
all better.
I know Boyhood was so much better. Even Jon Stewart said they didn't even give the best picture to the best picture. Like, yes, it's true.
It's true.
Boyhood was so much better.
It annoyed me in that movie how I felt like every single female character was a shrew, was terrible, was, I mean, and basically Edward Norton's character is wants to basically rape Naomi Watts' character on stage to be more authentic.
Method acting.
And the whole critic was so cringeworthy. I just thought, give me a break.
Yeah.
I know.
And then the ending, I hated it so much.
I know.
So I'm glad we should do a Birdman or rant.
We should.
Yes.
If you have on your like my nose on your...
I did see like 1-star review and they brought up exactly why I liked it. It's just egomania trip for the director. And I'm just like, it seriously does really feel that, even though I thought Michael Keaton should have gotten best actor for that. I don't think that Eddie Redmayne should have gotten it, but that's the only Oscar I would have given that film just for Michael Keaton.
I would have given it to Lubeski. I thought he deserved it.
And Lubeski, for cinematography, definitely.
But I completely agree on, I mean, again, another example, just because you look like someone doesn't mean you deserve the Oscar.
Yeah, no. Speaking of those films, I did not care for The Revenant. I guess that's one of my unpopular opinions that people would disagree with me with. I did not really care for it. I'm just like, isn't the point of movies is acting and pretending, not real? Like even Honest Trailers point out like Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu presents Jackass. It's like, I'm just like, no one should have to eat real bison heart when you're a vegetarian to win an Oscar. No one should have to sleep in an animal carcass or anything like that. No one should. Like, no, it's method gone mad. I was like,
and it got it got nominated for best production design when the whole point of the movie was that it was all outside.
I know. It's like,
congratulations,
awards,
you made
nature. Here's your Oscar, nature.
Trees. Way to go on the snow.
Exactly. Way to go, nature. Thanks for climate change not destroying you yet.
Oh god.
Yeah. I guess another unpopular opinion, I hate The Greatest Showman, and I'm only remembering that because it started playing again when I was at a restaurant. It plays everywhere. Every week I hear a song from it and I'm reminded of it. And because I worked at the movie theater and I had coworkers who watched it and were coming out crying in tears. And then I see it and I'm like, this movie's bad. Why do people like this movie? Why? And it had 6 editors. I was like,
I enjoyed it. What? I get it. I don't know. I just liked the songs. I thought it was catchy, but I understand why other people don't like it.
I feel like I'm like one of the lone female critics who didn't like it, or like I'm sorry, I didn't.
I am not one to be trusted around musicals. I love musicals.
I love musicals too, so that's why I was especially like, what's wrong with me? Because I was thinking everybody else loves it. What's wrong with me? But I just did not care for it at all.
I know many people that it was extremely popular here in Utah. I think we sold actually per capita the most tickets for one theater was in Utah. Wow. It was very, very, very popular.
It was it's also very chaste entertainment too. I will say it's the big Mormon population would really love that too. Not to stereotype,
it's got a big like pro-marriage, and it's also got like a certain degree of the type of theatricality that's very popular here.
And it's got the "when are you coming home, daddy" trope that they're so familiar with, that some people are like, I like it. I'm like, I don't like this. These kids do not sound like real kids to me. Like they're saying like, you need real people in there, dad. Like, you are a 4-year-old child. You should not be telling him to make a circus, kid.
Like, Manda, did you like The Greatest Showman? Where do you stand?
I was in the middle. I enjoyed it. I think I was more like, oh my God, Zac Efron's back in a musical. And I was like throwing it back to like High School Musical. I was like, yay, that was good. I think that was the draw for me. And Hugh Jackman's always a gem. But I was, I was in the middle with it. I enjoyed some songs, but it was a bit slow for me. I think the pacing was off, and that's why I didn't really vibe with the musical. But I was in the middle. It was a good time, but I didn't like love it.
My friend Camille and I went to the sing-along, and we had so much fun.
Oh, I love it.
We were like standing up the whole time, like, because there were only like 2 other people in the theater. So.
Now when I'm just thinking that song, I'm thinking of like the CGI horses clopping to the beat that sounds like the Panic at the Disco song.
Tell me, do you want to go?
Clap, clap, clap. Clap, clap, clap. I'm just like, I just think of that.
Well, so then we also always ask, what is something that you've either written or done or a podcast you've been a part of that you would say you feel proud of? And one that I thought of, I've had the opportunity to interview a lot of different people, mostly over at Hallmarkies podcast, but all over the place. And sometimes people are really nervous about being on an interview. And there was one, I won't tell her name, but there was one author who, this was her first book that she was publishing through Hallmark Publishing. And she was obviously very proud of it, very excited, but she was so nervous about being on an interview. I mean, I must have had half a dozen, maybe more, emails from her back and forth saying, what about this and what about this? And I was like, it's going to be great. I promise we'll edit it. I'll give you a chance to listen to it ahead of time. If you didn't like it, you can, so I tried, and we did the interview, and she was so sweet and so great. But I spent like probably a whole day editing that interview because I wanted it to be perfect, because I wanted her to have a really great experience. And I had to cut out so many filler words, so many ums and uhs and whatever. I mean, so many. It took me hours to edit that podcast. But when it came out, she was sharing it with everybody and she seemed to really love it. And I just felt like ever since then, she was so much more confident. She's now had like 2-3 books. And I just feel like that was something that I was able to kind of give to her, this sort of confidence boost and make her feel good. And that was something I was proud of, that I could do, and made it, worth, because it's not like it's the kind of interview that's going to get like tons of views and downloads and whatever, but it was something I could do for a person that made a difference. And that made me feel good.
I love it.
That's awesome.
What about you, Molly? What do you have?
Well, I feel like I had 2 things. One was a review, a full review for the movie Joker, because I despise that movie so much. And it was because I feel it was betraying its own message in regards to how we need the lower class and stuff needs to rise up and that sort of thing like that, or you should feel bad for the poor people, when it's obviously not trying to make the rich people look terrible or that sort of thing, because it's not willing to commit to that message, because the director Todd Phillips is a millionaire and he's like, no, I don't want people to really think this is a revolutionary film or that anything like that. And I was just like, and it's just nihilistic for no purpose whatsoever. And I'm meant to sympathize with the mass murderer, like, because he has mommy issues. So that was one thing. And I think I did get some backlash for it on my Letterboxd review, but most people were not going to read it because it was like 3 pages long. They're like, too long, didn't read. You suck. You hated Joker. I'm like,
that's why blogging is, I think so. I don't know if y'all agree. It's so much better than YouTube, even though I do, podcasts on YouTube, but like it just takes more effort to actually read a blog. As opposed to a video. So if I ever have anything controversial, I always just put it directly onto the blog, not on somewhere.
Yeah, that's what I need. I needed to work on that part. I think one thing that actually got published on the film stage, it was just a regular trailer write-up for this movie, The Columnist. and I'm not proud, and it's not because I'm proud of it, because I thought it was very well written and everything like that. I did have to do some research because it was from Denmark, everything like that. So you have to do that research to see how that stages. So, and I always do that requisite research, even if it's only going to be 100 to like 300 words. But it got a huge backlash on Twitter, and people were just angry, like, oh, the poor journalist and everything like that, because it's a movie based on this journalist columnist who's getting death threats and everything. And so she just decides to take revenge on the trolls who are sending her death threats and everything, and kill them herself. And it's a dark comedy about that, but people were hating on it without just seeing the trailer and just reading my little write-up. And nobody sent me death threats or anything like that, thank goodness. No one sent me that to like, why would you promote this film, that sort of thing like that. But it had like 2,000 quote retweets and that sort of thing. And I was like, whoa, I hope the editorial group at the film stage is doing okay with this, because no one's really brought up me. But that was one of the big things that got some of the biggest numbers on there. And I was like, well, bad publicity is still publicity. So that's why I'm kind of proud of it, that I was like, I took it in stride. So that was very interesting to see and be like, wow, I forgot how much people hate journalists. And I thought it was just a video game journalists were the really hated ones, not just like regular journalists, period. So that was interesting.
Yeah, I agree with you on Joker.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was just too weighted down with, like, there was no reasonable choice for him to not do what he did, which, like, to me ruins your argument of kind of following somebody with mental illness, because it's not real. Like, in real life, there's always going to be someone to turn to, like someone that's sympathetic. Like, everyone was just terrible, and so of course he's going to do that,
or one-dimensional, except for him.
I always say that the movie Christine is I think exactly the same message as Joker, but better.
Yes,
because it's about somebody in the media that has a mental breakdown in a very public, violent way, and they just do it so much better than because you actually you as a viewer, you get sort of frustrated with her, and you're like, she's not that likable of a character, and so you understand why the people in her life are kind of like, but then of course you don't want her to do what she does, so it's just so much better than what they do with Joker, in my opinion. But anyway, Manda, what about you? What's something you've done that you're proud of?
Well, during the pandemic, I kind of sent out a tweet saying that if anyone wanted to have me cover, their movies or films, going to any festivals, I took a gamble. I tweeted it. What's the worst that can happen? And I tweeted that out. So I got a DM from this independent film and the production company Roseray Media, and they said, can you please take a look at our feature film? And that was like the first time that has ever happened to me, that I was covering it, and I was just like, oh my god, I get to do this. So I was freaking out, but I did what I got, what I had to do. So I watched it. I really enjoyed it. I wrote the review, and it was the first time that I actually saw a pull quote from my review, and I was just like over the moon about it. And like, to happen at that point, like I was only like 24, and like that happened, I was like, oh my god, like this is awesome. So it was like a huge moment for me. And then they were like sharing my work and on multiple platforms, but to have that as like my first gamble that I took, and then it actually happened, and that movie, that piece like meant a lot to me. And it was really cool how that ended up happening, and now I'm still in contact with like the director and the production company. But that's one where it really stood out just because of the way it happened, and then other opportunities came, so it was just really awesome and something that'll stay with me for sure.
That's so cool. I mean, I've only had one pull quote myself. It was in an indie film just this last year, And that was
Nice.
really
That's
exciting.
awesome. Yeah, it is exciting. And like, even if it happens in the future, it's like, oh my God, it happened again. They'll just be happy about it.
I'm just glad that you liked the movie, because that's always
Yes.
the worst when
Yes.
you, because you have to be honest, you can't lie.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you're just like, oh man.
Yeah. I've had those moments where it's like,
Yeah.
oh no, I can't sugarcoat this, but it is what it
Mhm.
is. It's why we do what
Yeah.
we do, right? So,
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's right. Very cool. Well, thank you so much, ladies. This was great, getting a chance to get to know both of you and to talk about our experiences. And I've just really enjoyed this so much. And so, Molly, where can people find you?
Well, I'm on Twitter at rasraspberry.com, rasraspberry. So if you want to find me over there you can find me. And I also should have a profile on the film stage. I haven't written much for them, unfortunately. I need to get back on that and write some more, but I am part of that crew, sort of in a sense. So yes. So yeah.
Manda, what about you? How can people find you?
yeah, well, first, thank you so much for having me on. This is a great discussion. You guys are both amazing, so it's a lot of fun. You guys can always find me over at AMX Ending Reviews on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. You can check out my YouTube channel, Candid Cinema, and my website, candidxcinema.com.
We'll have all that in the description section, so make sure you all follow. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So please check that out. And then also check out the Hallmarkies podcast. You'll really enjoy all our coverage over there. And check out the merch store. We actually have Female Film Critic Panel merch, our logo on all different stuff. And it's pretty fun. I really like it. And then also check out the Patreon. I would really appreciate that support over there as well. And thanks so much, ladies, so much. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. And we'll talk again next month. Bye, everyone.
Bye.